The Lord Christ Jesus is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord Christ Jesus forever. What's happening? Benton here, rolling out of the Walmart Supercenter in West Memphis, Arkansas. Got a good night's sleep. 2 in a row, baby. Holla. Headed on some back roads up north into Missouri. And then after that, Illinois. Shout out to some emails that I got. Some fine folks willing to help out yours truly with a loan so I can get my DOT physical. Thank you for that. I have thoughts. Certainly. I had a few lined up right before I went live, and where did they go? They're in there somewhere. Probably tie into the topic, get busy dying, right? As I visited with my grandmother, my 91-year-old grandmother yesterday. This idea that, it could be the last time that I see a person or you see a person. Well, isn't that always the case? And then so many people I've observed, having guilt around maybe a harsh word or just not treating somebody all that well, and it ended up being the last time they saw each other. Well, every time you see or I or anyone sees a so-called loved one, that could be the last time. That's the get busy dying. That's the as far as I'm concerned, this is death, this realm. This is the process of dying, the experience of dying. Right? What I am is the life. I'm gonna run this light. I'm not just sitting here like a moron. Oh, and somebody maybe they're passed out at the light. Their light's green. They're just sitting there. That's funny. Probably passed the fuck out. Strange. I didn't even notice at first. It's like, why are we both sitting here? Yeah, passed the fuck out probably. We'll see them on body cam on YouTube. I could have went and woke them up, but then, by then I'd already ran the light. That was interesting. But yeah, it's great that folks are willing to help out. Before I get into the heavy death topics fully, I do want to say that based on this realm as vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, I sort of predicted in my own mind that the type of folks who would be willing to help me out with a hundo are probably the same type, because I offered to pay back $150, would also probably be the type to say, well, you don't need to do that. Just, that's not necessary. And it's like, well, wait a minute, where are we going here? Okay, I think we stay on this service road, don't we? Or am I tripping? Did I just fuck up? I think I just fucked up. Hang on, we got to bust a Yui, maybe. Let me see. done fucked up. Hold on. Bust a U-turn. 3-point turn. Yeah, we done fucked up. Well, maybe not. No, that's the interstate, ain't it? Fuck. This is confusing. All right, I'm staying on this access road. We'll just see what happens. I think it wants me on the other access road, but I can't even see another access road, so I'm not sure. What's going on here? Trying to avoid the interstate since we're driving slow for fuel economy. What I would say to that is, surely, earlier versions of Benton and, people who are willing to help out, there are folks in the world who know that they can give a sob story. And, okay, this is a dead end, no wonder. Maybe. All right, confusion. Aha, I see what's going on. You have to go across the bridge, that's what it is. Yeah, you have to go across the bridge. I'm fucking up. I should have looked at this route a little closer. Anyway, I'll get there, folks. Bear with me. It doesn't save fuel, though, if I end up going way out of the way. These people, and I can't speak to the person actually who's already sent me the money. So thank you for that. Much appreciated if you're listening. It helps me out because it's way to my advantage to get this done before I hit the road. So for that, I'm willing and happy to pay an exorbitant interest rate, because the reality is, other than loss to my own reputation, I could easily just keep the hundo. However, as we've seen, these are the type of people who will psychologically absolve, and I mean the people who would just take the 100, they will psychologically absolve themselves in some way. Oh, we are really fucking up. Sort of be have all kind of excuses, and in their mind it won't even be their fault. Meanwhile, they knew the whole time they were going to steal the money, right? And this is a lot of drug addicts behave this way. So what I would say is, especially living in the streets with nothing for so long, I've seen, I've been around these meth heads who are, about to go off to the truck stop and concoct all sorts of sob stories to play upon people's sympathies, to get money. Now, that's not a loan, but surely these people have already burned out everybody that would have been willing to loan them money. So that's what the $50 is for. It's for the fact that most likely the person's been burned, and we've all been burned on some level. I've been burned by people that I loaned money to. I gave a guy $150 one time for weed, and he intentionally stiffed me. And I actually knew the guy. It wasn't like just some random person. That'd be on me, right? And that's a whole long story, but the point I'm making is it's sort of for being willing to risk it. I value that service so in a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. And this sort of shows that, in a way, the spirit of what I am, and again, if the listener is apprehended of, that same force, power, force, and source, right? Authority, life, creation, love, all of the things that this world lacks. Then, apologies, I lost my point a little bit. Got distracted with the GPS. That the realm forces the being or does its best to force the being into, business transactions and all of life as transactions. So in my view, and I'm not lecturing anybody, I'm making points, that's the reason to accept the $50 in the context of a business transaction. And the system itself plays upon the willingness and the nature of the individuals that comprise the masses to take the worst of it, So, I understand in a vacuum, they don't necessarily desire the $50. What I would say is, it's kind of justice in a way, because, who hasn't been burned by somebody who said, hey, I need to borrow this money only not to repay. I've had people I've not repaid, it's not about being proud of it. Yeah, I've done that. Sure. So maybe in some way that could be part of my penance for, whoever I may have done wrong in the past. So, and then myself, at a certain point, I realized that I had no desire to worry or to think about, even if it was $20, I'm more inclined to just give them $20 and say, listen, man, this is a gift. You don't owe me any money, because not for them, for me to say, yeah, I don't want to think about this money again. It's not worth $20 to me to think about $20. Now, $100 is a different story, obviously. And I get it. And I'm not, this could come off sounding like, I know myself well enough, it could be sounding like, well, just give me the $100. Well, if I wanted that, I would have went live and said, hey, pretty please with sugar on top, because somebody send me $100. And also let's face the reality that part of the $50 is it's an agreement, because if all this falls through, which is possible, it's not likely, but you never know. It's possible that I get all the way up there and the guy's like, yeah, it turns out I changed my mind. Now, the reality is that it's very high that I would then just get hired by a different company in the area. But, let's call it what it is. There is a chance of defaulting on this loan. So the $50 is for the risk, and then to defray some of the costs of the past, if that makes sense. So, and then does it become I send $150 and then they send me $50 back? It's like, are we just going to keep sending each other money back and forth? Right. So either way, it's just more of a thought experiment and food for thought. That it's interesting to think one's way through all of that, in my view. I find it interesting, at least. And thank y'all for listening while I organize my thoughts. I guess these people are taking the exit in a mile. I don't know what other reason is there for following me. Sometimes I've finally figured out some of these people don't want to pass. They want to wait for a faster car to go past first, maybe, and get behind them. But they've rolled up on my ass at 80, and then their cruise control. Yeah, the adaptive cruise control probably caught them. I'm not a fan of that adaptive cruise control. Either way, I thought I found a route where I could be off, not on the interstate, but here we are on the interstate. The back roads. I rode the back roads most of yesterday. Oh, and man, I got like 46 miles a gallon. It's crazy how far I drove on like $14. Just nuts. Shout out to the Nissan Versa. And it's not like, oh, get a Versa and you'll get good mileage. No, I'm going 60 miles an hour. Or on the back roads, 55. So it's not the vehicle so much as the way I'm driving. And, keep the tires inflated to the proper pressure. That makes a big difference. I do feel a little bit of the cranky old man effect this morning, so be aware of that. So it will take me a little while to ramble my way into these topics. It's funny how I had all of this organized in my mind, And it's not the going live necessarily, the pressure. It's just the not having the visual cues. I guess I could have taken some notes, perhaps. Oh well. And the way that people, deal with or don't deal with mortality, and how much of that is the system, the fact that it's this idea that life is wonderful, there's all of this opportunity, your family is loving, society is loving and nurturing. It's all a bunch of lies. Now, some people may very well have loving families. It's the minority, folks. If a person hears me say it's the minority of families are loving, this is not the channel for you. And I don't mean that as an excuse. I'm sorry, I don't mean that as like a challenge or a, you're not accepted as a listener. I'm saying you ain't ready for this. Right? Now, maybe you need to hear it. And if I ain't talking to you, I ain't talking to you. And I would say if a person is actually interested in any sort of growth and change within themselves, a good place to start is to examine whatever is within the individual that says, well, that's not true. My family's loving, and so is almost every family that I observe. Okay, well, that's called delusional and in denial. Unless we're observing different things, and that means it's the philosophy of solipsism, meaning, maybe each individual has such a different experience of the world that it may as well not be a collective experience, which would turn out to be solipsism, which is a specific definition connected to philosophy. It has other definitions that sound more like mental illness. I'm talking about the one that's specifically attached to philosophy. And of course, philosophy being yet another business within this world of death and game of lives, philosophy teaches at a level of consensus of all philosophers that anybody's ever heard of. Well, that's not possible. Solipsism is impossible, just like nihilism is impossible. Oh, okay, so every philosopher who either has made a name for themselves or is attempting to make a name for themselves, they all agree at a level of consensus that solipsism and nihilism can't possibly have validity. Well, here's my clue to observe those philosophies and to seek to validate them versus invalidate them. Because now I have a hint at a Sherlock Holmes deductive reasoning level. Oh, probably. Right? And this is why I want to ride the back roads, as one of our loving Americans intentionally runs a big rig into the ass of me going 60 miles an hour. Because then it's more convenient for them to pass the big rig. Because if they can force the big rig to slow way the fuck down, they don't have to boldly speed the fuck up next to a scary, gigantic big rig. This is your loving society. This is your society that works together for the greater good. And of course, those people, when they interact with their families, they only do it lovingly, with tolerance and acceptance. And then they go out on the roads, and this is what they perform. They seek every single advantage, which is why almost all of us here who are kind-hearted enough to lend people money have been taken advantage of. And some of us have been the same people that took advantage. How is that the same person? Yeah, I've loaned people money and gotten burned. Not a lot. But it's happened. Meanwhile, there are people that I've witnessed repeatedly be willing to help. And again, I'm not blaming whoever loaned me money, and I'm leaving them anonymous. That's why I say whoever. I know who you are. Thanks so much. And I know who also offered. Thank you as well. And the second person, I may very well hit them up once I get hooked up, once I get loaded and hit the road for the first load. Because I'm basically broke, meaning I have enough money to do what I need to do to hopefully show up presentable for the job. Laundry, clothes did, enough food to survive, until the first paycheck potentially, whenever that's going to be. And by survive, I mean just, the bare minimum. And so one thing about, keeping a cushion, right? Again, within the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, to have some sort of a cushion. Very important. And it's up to each individual to manage these dynamics, as we know. That's on us. And, certainly I appreciate the willingness, and I would appreciate somebody letting me give them a $50 fee for their willingness to put themselves out there. And it's still a risk. There's still, your money's at risk. Why not? The banking system says, hell yeah, give us that fee. And in fact, if people believe in the economy, a big reason why the economy is, so-called, I've talked about what the economy really is, but under this idea of if we go official fiction and try to have some notion of what people believe the economy to be falsely, well, a big reason why it's in ruins is because of fees, because all of these financial institutions and various entities, they take fees every step of the way. It's transacting, and in order to transact, fees everywhere out the yang, right? All over the place. But then it shows the nature of the individual that I had a pretty good idea that that's what I would be told. Hey, I'm willing to send the money, but don't bother with the exorbitant fee. So in a way, it's the humanity, and humanity is not even the proper term. It's the nature of the indivisible force who doesn't know anything about business, doesn't know anything about transacting, because love knows nothing of transaction. Love knows nothing of condition. See? It does not know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, this realm only understands the languages of power and money. That's all it knows. The government can't do anything that money and power doesn't force it to do. That's how it works, because that's its nature. See? It has to be made to do things by power and money, or it doesn't know what to do. See? And that's why the people collectively are so fooled, because they think that they get to protest, right? They think they get to whine and cry and complain. Or even worse of all, they think, well, of course, this system of things loves us and has our best interest at heart, right? Just like people believe that about their families. And again, I'm not here to gaslight. I'm saying, well, what is the attraction to this sort of channel and material if the being is completely convinced that their own family has to do nothing other than love them and anything else is impossible? In spite of there has to be evidence to the contrary. Oh, well, that's just an anomaly. That's an outlier. Okay. Well, either way, as you like it. I'm not convinced, certainly. And if you can hear the flashers, my apologies, but these people at this early AM are just incapable of recognizing, especially in the dark, they can't recognize me as a slow-moving vehicle. And I don't want to look up. It's just too jarring to look up every 5 to 10 minutes, and there's a big rig on my ass with a car passing in the fast lane. And the big rig's having to wait and wait and wait and wait because the car wants to creep by at 2 miles an hour faster. Meanwhile, they were both going 80. And now the big rig's going, slower and slower and slower, catching up to me. Because remember, instead of treating each other properly, the car is doing exactly what's in their best interest, and fuck that big rig. Fuck them, right? Yeah, the two of them could work together to get around this slow-moving vehicle. And then who will blame me? Folks will say, well, what are you doing, Benton? I'm paying the least amount possible for gasoline driving here from Los Angeles. It's the only reason I'm not verging on broke right now. If I just went the fucking speed limit or faster, I would have spent way more money getting out here. And it's legal for me to drive this way. We're above the minimum speed. Oh, and it's a free country. I'm free to go 60. See? Collectivism says, well, you need to do what everybody else is doing. Why is that? I thought I was free. I thought I was a rugged, tough individual boldly cutting his own path through this dystopia. Which is it? Well, it's whichever one the system needs at a given juncture. It's whatever the system needs to have performed at a level of Orwellian doublethink, right? At a level of Orwellian doublethink. One moment, let's drink some water. And again, people are defenders of this indefensible system, you know. And at the risk of bringing it back to personality politics and all of this, there was a YouTube content creator that maybe he's moved on to different channels. I don't know. He's been known to start a creative project and then, move on to other projects. Totally normal. But some people take that personally. A death of a channel. You know, when the original In a Yurt with Books channel, I had no idea that the last time I visited that channel, it was going to be the last time. Now, it turned out I was in the process of downloading all of his live streams to my hard drive, but I had procrastinated and the channel disappeared. And that was not the reason for the deletion, certainly, but there was a gold mine of content that I would have preferred to have access to, potentially. And that also reminds me that headed north now, if I had continued east, I was actually fairly close to the area where, if my computer equipment is still accessible, where I could have potentially retrieved it. Isn't that interesting? It just now occurs to me that I could potentially turn this bitch around. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Probably easier to drive, to spend, up to half a week's pay on new equipment, and then the only thing that's lost there would be the actual data that was stored on the hard drives and the SD cards and such. No big deal. No biggie. Now, why did I bring up two different now deleted channels? In a thought experiment, that channel's gone. So the last time I visited that channel, I had no idea that was going to be the last time. Again, a process of death. And then so proper identification based on the uncovering of the perfected path within is the, like it or not, whatever you know yourself to be in the context of this realm is busy dying. Period. And then this idea of get busy living or get busy dying. See? Because to refuse to engage creatively and expansively within the delusory adversarial realm of business transactions, that's to affirm a lack of what? Life. But then the acceptance and the trust that based on what I know myself to be, that this place can't touch me anyway. And this is a big portion of the Christ story, which is submission to death, which doesn't even exist. So the being, like Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, right, or Job from the book of Job, Job chapter 1, it's an understanding and then an affirmation of, well, yeah, I'm now the being, and I'll use myself, Benton is free. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, right? Well, what I am can't ever be lost, except the business of this realm. The busyness of death of this realm is to constantly be engaged in a process of actively managing the fact that individuals must be in a state of affirming forgetfulness, to not remember who and what they are. Because the moment they begin to understand who and what they are individually, and then intelligently apply that to what this place is and how it operates, that is sedition. That is Christ. That is what the system takes as a threat and will do everything in its power to destroy. That's the Christ story. It's not death for death. Oh, Christ loved you so much, he died for your death. What are you talking about? Sin is dead. The flesh is dead. Whatever motivates the individual, person A seeking to gratify themselves, person A gratifying themselves. I've lost my own damn expression. Person A using person B for person A's own gratification. One of the most frequent and common means of harm done from one individual to another. See? So remove the need for the gratification, because it's not a need, because what I am can't ever lack anything that would cause what I am to need to seek to gratify. Completeness, right? Self-contained, worshiper and worshipee contained within the same space. There's nothing that can gratify that. See? And the system is set up to make an enemy of what I am. So when the being sees these mechanisms at play, right, and divorces themselves, abandon hope, all ye who enter here, right? Hope of what? Hope of this place ever being able to transform into something that is supportive, loving, tolerant, and has justice and peace. There will never be justice here. There will never be peace here. There will never be love here. There will never be tolerance here. There will never be meaning here, philosophers. Now there will be gaslighting of Benton. Oh, you sound like a nihilist. Motherfucker, anybody that accuses me of that doesn't know what nihilism is, or doesn't know where they are, or doesn't know who they are, or what they are, or most likely is not what I am, because they have been turned over through a bloodline. They've been so cut off from what they are, even if they are possessed of Nancy Pelosi's spark of MS-13 spark of divinity. It's buried so deep within them, they're never going to get back to it in this so-called life that I would call death. They're too busy dying. They're too identified with death itself to ever experience enough life to say, well, I'm going to dig and dig and dig and dig and maybe never get to the bottom of this thing. And that's okay, because the reward is contained within the thing itself. So there's never not a benefit to digging deep within oneself. There's always a reward. It just may not be the one that you've decided, and I don't mean you, the listener. It may not be the one that you believe you've been promised. See? Because there's an entire industry, surprise, surprise, everything's a business. So when you're in line at the checkout at the grocery store, hey, look, one of them yoga ladies sitting cross-legged in meditation, Time magazine or whatever came out with a special edition all about meditation, and it's bliss. Look at the serene look on her face, right? There's her reward. It ain't that. If anybody's ever made themselves sit cross-legged for a minimum of 90 days, as I've done, the most difficult thing I've ever done, and I've done many, many, many difficult things. Right? Well, that's a business. See how it works? And how quickly the psychology of the being, because Moloch's machine created the psychology and installed it, and the person is mind controlled into creating an identity for themselves within themselves that's based on this realm in order to get along and get through the day, right? So what resources, what is going to be required to rise above and transcend? And I'm just going to call it like I see it. Until I meet somebody who's transcended these limitations, I'm going to assume I'm the only one. That's the philosophy of solipsism. I ain't met these Zen Buddhists. I've met a lot of so-called truthers that LARP as Zen Buddhists in comments and in live chats. Oh, okay, yeah, sure, we're all Zen Buddhists now. Chop wood, carry water, got it. So now there's no reason to actually metaphorically chop the wood and carry the water, because we've collectively internalized these notions and we know how to plausibly LARP as Zen Buddhists in live chats. Great. No reason to actually put the work in. No reason to metaphorically put the shovel into the dirt to uncover the perfected path that may lie within, because here's the problem. That's going to involve trust. That's going to involve yin. Am I really willing to trust and accept that there may be, without a guarantee, that there may be the perfected path that lies within? Maybe. And my reward will be to maybe dig down so deep and to start to say, well, damn, I'm not sure it's in there. And when did Benton unlock the achievement of true knowledge of self, which is what I'm talking about? It's the uncovering of the perfected path within, because the path can't be walked. The perfected path can't be walked until it's visible, because it's obscured, because this realm teaches through the subversion of the creative force to actively shovel dirt, metaphorically, onto that path into perpetuity within the delusions of time, space, location, place. That's the game. That's the world of death and the game of lies. And it's not to listen to Benton and take notes, or, hey, Benton, when are you going to write your book? Many people have written this down in many books. None of it has amounted to a hill of beans until you read the books and you alchemize all of this within yourself and create your own version of your own book of this. See? Yet another book ain't going to do a damn thing but contribute to yet another business transaction industry. And yes, Benton could have made a life coach and all of this, made a business of his own stupid personality long ago. And that would have guaranteed that he never uncovered the perfected path within. And let me introduce you to one Jack Talcott, life coach. He can never uncover the perfected path, even if it lies within, based on his own folly. And no one will ever convince him of that. And that's okay. I accept that. What I am can only accept that. What I am can't create resistance to anything whatsoever, including that. See? So when my father, Larry Benton, emails me, and I don't know if he listens to this, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. He's certainly not awake at this hour, unless he's been up all night. Maybe he's up all night crew. Suspiciously emailing me close to my bedtime. Not suspiciously. Although suspicion means without evidence, at least by one of the numerous multiple meetings. So I guess that is appropriate. Suspiciously. I have no evidence for my accusation. Either way, I doubt that he would intentionally do such a thing. But maybe the demons that most assuredly infest him would do such a thing. How you gonna love a demon, Pops? Hey, Pops, how you gonna love a demon? Because remember, if what I am is not spiritually attacked, then Benton can't be walking the perfected path that lies within if Benton ain't being spiritually attacked on a daily basis. It must happen. Again, back to the Christ story. Christ said, hey, the servant is not greater than the master. You seen what I did. They said, what do you mean servant? Meaning to serve within oneself in service of what? Preparing the way and tilling the soil in a sower parable, where to put the seed. That's internal, folks. That's not go out and preach to the masses, bozo Christians. bozos. That means till the soil inside so that the resurrection of the risen Christ within you can occur. What are you waiting for? Get busy dying. Oh, that's right. You're already busy dying in the context of this place. I'm 50. How old are you? Meanwhile, nobody's promised tomorrow. Nobody's promised this afternoon. We all know it on some level, but oh my goodness, the horrors, the sheer horrors of mortality. You mean this is going to end? This so-called life? Wasn't that a TV show? Yeah, buddy. Your beloved grandmother's going to pass, or maybe you're going to pass. Some one of you's going first. It's a damn Mexican standoff game of chicken between the two of you on some level. Who's it going to be? I've reckoned with most of this long ago. They say yippee skippy yay for Benton. Hey, yeah, sure. Sure enough. What you gonna tell me, partner? Nothing. Why is there not a live chat? Because half the time when I go off like this, the people who probably do listen, who happen to be the same folks and take it to heart, who happen to be the same folks who are probably willing to lend money, I don't see them in the comments. Maybe every once in a while, but no, I don't see them. God forbid I forget to set the slow mode. If I don't turn slow mode on, there's a damn flood. The wall of text, the proverbial wall of text, where they're not they, the people I just referenced. These other people are putting their own stink. You know, they're putting their stink on these ideas, but at a lower level. Hey, thanks for dragging down the discourse. Hopefully the sarcasm is detectable. Thanks for dragging down the discourse, right? Because they're panicking. The demons within them are panicking. Look, when I really start nailing these topics, and I've forgotten to either turn the chat off or I've forgotten to turn slow mode on, and you look down there and there's somebody spurging out, although they're not really spurging out because they're seemingly intelligently typing. That's the demons that most assuredly infest their energy spheres, panicking. Because much like the story in the Bible where Christ came upon the demon-infested man, and the demons began to panic and said, "What are you doing here, Lord?" Meaning they recognized Christ, or what? They recognized the spirit within, and Christ, Jesus, in the context of the Son of Man, a dead thing, the flesh, a dead thing. So when my grandmother, because I mentioned Christ, starts talking about the word, God and all this entered into flesh, I had to point out to her, well, I'm pretty sure the flesh is dead, lady, or granny, respectfully. So I don't, I understand the story you're telling me, but, and I'm attempting, and she has dementia, so what's the difference? Is she going to remember that I said this? Who cares on some level? But spiritually, perhaps there's an effect. Perhaps. But this world is set up to have us honor and uphold the idea that this body is wondrous. Your body is a wonderland, right? Another mockery. Yet another mockery. See how it works? It's dead. Belongs to this world. It ain't leaving here. What I am can never be made to remain here, because if it can be made to remain here, it's the spirit of demonism and everything demonic and ugly and decadent and depraved. That's what stays here spiritually. That's the process whereby divinity cuts itself off from returning to source within the context of how, these things supposedly operate energetically. See, within the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, time, space, location, place. waking dreams, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again. If all of that's accounted for, yeah, sure, there's a lot of caveats, but that's the way it goes. That's just the way it works. Don't kill the messenger. Or maybe do. He's dying anyway. No, he's not. What he is can never die. What we believe ourselves to be at an unevolved, unenlightened level, that's the thing that's dying. Thankfully. What a horror is hell to not be able to die in the context of strongly identifying with this world and then creating an identity that's wrapped up in this world. To animate that thing, death warmed over, some version of the Michael Jackson Thriller video, yeah, let's extend that. And so the Bible talks about all they that hate, air quotes, so-called God, love death. That's your transhumanists. That's the people who are seeking to extend the experience. They're trying to be the zombies from the Thriller video forever. For motherfucking ever. And take everybody who's willing to live that way, animated death, death warmed over, with them. Build a motherfucking metaphorical rocket ship and blast off. Partying all along the way. Seeking whom they may devour. What does that mean? What does seeking whom they may devour mean from the book of Job? It means the subversion of the creative force. Air quote, so-called God says, was Hanimpadna addressing Satan, who, when the sons of God came to present themselves unto the Lord, Satan also came within their midst. Air quote, so-called God, almost like a military commander or the chief commander of this world. Shout out to Bob Dylan in his 60 Minutes interview. So then the chief commander surveys the troops. Now what's implied is they perhaps didn't realize that Satan came in their midst, and instead of addressing the assembled troops, he addresses who? The highest ranking among them, and says, what's happening, Satan? What you up to, partner? Meaning, where are you leading this regiment into? Oh, just seeking whom we may devour. Meaning, this is the beings imbued with creative force that I've ensnared into folly. This is my power source. However many march to present themselves. What does the presenting themselves mean? They have to follow the law because they're so wicked and fallen. It's not up to them. We're the beings who get to choose, because based on what I am, I have to be offered the opportunity to choose, because if I'm not offered the opportunity to choose within delusion, there can't be a delusion, because what I am is so great. The castaway bits of what I am are so great, nobody can take their measure. Just what falls by the wayside when the meteor of that force is metaphorically traveling through the fucking galaxies. Satan, or antithesis, says, I'll take the castaway sparks of this brilliant phenomenon and make something out of it subversively. It's right there in the pages. Meanwhile, John 14:26, the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, will be sent in my name and teach you all things and bring unto remembrance. Coming back to this topic repeatedly, look, a new teaching. And you're welcome. And that's why Benton deserves donos. That's fine. Benton happens to be spiritually attacked and sleeping in a car and going off to drive a big rig, where he will be free at various times to deliver these discourses. Right? While also supporting himself. Because this world of death and game of lies, the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions that demands its pound of dead flesh. Let the dead bury the dead, render unto Caesar. The dead money, the dead body. Fascinating. All they that hate, air quotes, so-called God love death. There's your transhumanists. There's your so-called sons of God, because they're already in delusion. If they're individuated beings, because if they're not in delusion, they're only ever one with the most super intelligent power, force, and source of love and creation and authority and all of these other traits. And there's your toxic positivity. Here's your toxic positivity, meaning, well, this realm that's the lack of all of those characteristics has to be toxically positive. It has to be toxically positive. There is no other alternative. And like the Michael Jackson Thriller video, the dead or the undead must dance a sufficiently alluring jig to entice and hypnotize and entrain mentally Michael Jackson in his purity and his girlfriend in her purity, represented symbolically by the visage of Michael Jackson in his leather jacket with his best gal at his side, in harmony and innocence and purity. And then they go into the theater and they view a projection of animated death, death warmed over. Hey, come on in, the water's fine. And that's you. And that was me no more, though. See? Oh, there goes Benton putting on airs. No. Maybe Benton's helping to show the way, because, yeah, the books are here. And the so-called holy men were here, right? Well, what good is a Christ story? What good is Vishnu and, all of this? Buddha. If nobody here is actually bothering to do the work to uncover the perfect path within, to show, hey, look, it can be done. Meanwhile, all the while, this world and the people who are identified with it, every moment of every day will seek to negate and destroy and mock and ridicule the expression of righteous perfection in a state beyond so-called sin. Who will ever answer that call? You're listening to him. Why aren't there more? And is Benton able to do that perfectly? Nope. Not yet. What I am can't ever do it imperfectly. How about them apples? What I am will never know an imperfect performance, because what I am is always expanding, creating, loving, tolerating, accepting. It's doing that all of the time within the context of dead flesh, world of death, game of lies, vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. How frequently or infrequently can you get off the wrong path onto the right path? And the moment the being is on the right path, there is no possibility of expressing sinfully or wickedly or in a fallen manner. That's the sedition. That's the threat to the system. And that's the yin of knowing and tolerating and accepting that under those conditions, there is no mistake. There is no error, even if it feels like folly and error, because this realm is set up to gaslight and to mock and ridicule and attack at all times. And do you have the desire and the guts to say, fuck this world, fuck this death? What I am will never know death. What I am will never understand this world, meaning what I am can never be infested with a human psychology and then understand what I am based on what this place purports itself to be. And that is madness and insanity and psychological schism and mental illness. And we wonder why folks have all these problems. Why can't they figure it the fuck out? Because this place ain't set up to let people figure it out. It's set up to stop them from figuring it out. And you better become some high-level spiritual warrior you think you're going to beat this motherfucker. Because the only way to beat this motherfucker is to beat what this place turns you into. And because you was chicken shit and ignorant, you let it turn you into that. Who wants to go within and say, wow, I really let this fucking place turn me into that? Turned me the fuck out. Ran a train on my bitch ass for decades. Still runs a train on my bitch ass part of the day. But then, wait a minute. What's that feeling of struggle? What's that feeling of depression? What's that anxiety and fear? Oh, that's right. I temporarily identified with my captor. Ha. Ha. Temporarily. But meanwhile, this realm teaches, well, anything achievable is only achievable through a means of assertion, aggression, dominance, yang, meaning, hey, go out here and smash the patriarchy, right? Go out here, feminists, and claim the space, right? Maybe one day the slaves will have enough and overthrow the government. They can't overthrow the government because the government has mind controlled them into only ever using assertion, aggression, and dominance. Man will dominate man and demands own injury. The system knows the slaves are incapable of psychological revolt. Guess what? What is the resurrection of the risen Christ within me? That is the revolution. It cannot be televised. The revolution cannot be televised. The revolution cannot be televised. You can't broadcast this. Now, Benton can broadcast his ideas. They're my ideas. Until the being accesses what they are creatively and expansively, and at that point, they create their own ideas on behalf of them, in service of them, within them. Worshiper and worshipee contained within the space. You better figure out how to apprehend something within you that's worthy of worship. What I am is worthy of worship. Not Benton the performer, not Benton the performance. The uncovering of the perfected path that lies within Christ consciousness. The Lord Christ Jesus, Holy Ghost, entering in, expressing, loving, doing what it does without intervention. I don't know what it does. The human psychology. How would the human psychology created by Moloch, based on the lack of the characteristics of Christ, how in the world would it ever know how Christ is going to express? So now, let's go into a fear state and say, well, I suspect maybe Christ is expressed through me a time or two, but I don't know. I can't trust to know ahead of time what that's going to look like. Yeah, you won't know it. How can the psychology of the being ever predict ahead of time what that's going to look like? Oh, here's Benton driving down the road or the back roads of West Memphis, Arkansas. After just expressing, you know what, I'd like to maybe possibly be able to stash this car somewhere and get back to it someday. Oh, look, there's a black fella. Maybe in his 40s, I don't know, hard to tell. Walking down the street with a gas can. Well, maybe he broke down somewhere. I don't know. I pull into the middle lane, look over at him, just kind of raise my arms up like, what's it going to be, partner? You need a ride or not, buddy? He jogs over, gets in the car, drive him to the gas station. He gets gas. Well, he's just mowing a yard. He doesn't say what yard. He doesn't say if it's his yard. Maybe he's trying to make $20. I don't know what the guy's doing. Not my business. See? But is this some version of where two or more are gathered in what? Christ consciousness. or even Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 Spark of Divinity. What does this world teach? Oh no, what might happen? What I am can't worry about what might happen. Meanwhile, so it's number one is to trust to help out, and it's to trust to know when to help out, because sometimes I'm going to look over and think, well, there's no way I'm putting that person in my car. The signs are there. See, I'm not putting, because this wasn't based on pity or sympathy and being like, oh, well, I feel some type of way about this guy's potential plight. That's bullshit. That's dead. But maybe he's on a time constraint. Maybe he's got children and his wife ain't around. And maybe he wants to get the yard mowed so mama's happy when she gets home. Because probably in this world, she's the one making the money. That's just how it is nowadays. And he's trying to hang on to his manhood. Meanwhile, she's got the truck keys and she's busting his motherfucking chops about why he ain't mowed that yard yet. Well, here come old Benton. Here come Christ consciousness. They say, oh, Benton, you calling yourself Christ again? No, that's what you say. That's what the accuser says. That's what In a Yurt Book says. That's what In a Thought Experiment says. See? Spiritually attacked through my own air quotes, friends. See how it works? Here's my exit. I can finally get off of this godforsaken expressway, interstate, ride the back road, as I'm wont to do. Well, a mile, not this exit. Yeah, this exit, my bad. Get out of these people's way. And it turns out, I'm almost sure that I ended up dropping him off at his house. Now, meanwhile, it took him way fucking longer than necessary. For all I know, he was in there sweet talking whoever owns the store into giving him some credit. I don't know what's going on. I know because I'm familiar with the culture, because I grew up in a similar culture nearby, which is why I'm able to pick the guy up in the first place, because culturally, a lot of y'all wouldn't have been able to pick him up. Lord knows I could barely pick up on his Memphis vernacular. Might as well have been talking to a broken speech, or somebody from India. I caught just enough of what he was saying to get the gist of it. Go watch a YouTube video about Memphis people talking to each other. And because I gave him the body language that I spoke his language, he talked to me like I was him. He talked to me like I was from where he was from. It's like, well, yeah, I'm from Pine Bluff. But I didn't make him repeat himself. This world hears Benton speak and says, huh? What was that? We're going to need you to talk in the way we want you to talk. Or I don't know, maybe I'll talk in my native tongue. And if you don't catch it, you don't catch it. I don't know. Shit. What you gonna tell me, partner? Nothing. Nothing that represents life. Oh, shit. Where the hell are these people going? Oh, they're getting on the freeway. But I say, why is there like 10 people going 60 miles an hour on the side road on a Sunday morning? This is crazy. Where are they going? I guess they got to go to work, probably. They're all turning right, but not that anybody would ever use a turn signal, because, let's pretend like society is willing to work together, but you can't get a turn signal out of these people. Distrust and fear. I'm not making a left turn. Hang on, this is crazy. Where's this sending me? Okay, I see where. Wait a minute. Okay, hold on. See, the thing about Google Maps is it will just change the motherfucking route and not tell your ass that it's changing the route, which is what's happened here. Dodges. We're at the Dodges store. Back when Benton used to still eat fried foods. Some excellent fried wings, deep fried wings. Yeah, they're sending us the wrong fucking way. Or am I sending myself the wrong way? I don't know. It's mass confusion now. I might have to get on 55 just because, oh, this is taking me the wrong fucking place. Huh. Glad I noticed this. Bear with me. Oh, I see what happened. Makes sense now. I get it. I think we're just going to have to get on 55 and we're going to have to abort the back road mission, sadly. Oh well, we tried. Google Maps just ain't up to the task today. I should have known when I had me turning left off the interstate. And it didn't make any sense. I'm not saving fuel if I'm going off in the wrong directions. Yeah, MPGs, but it's still costing money. And here, when we get to what has to be his house, there's his children, most likely, in the road, in the cul-de-sac. And then I'm trying to figure out where to park because I'm not going to drive near the children. Meanwhile, as soon as they see that we're driving up to their house, they scurry out of the road because he's teaching them properly. And I said something about, hey, those are some good kids. They knew to get out of the road. Because some people may say, yeah, of course they do. A lot of these children are not receiving any raising whatsoever. None. And they'll get mad at you if you say, hey, man, why are your kids in the street? Get them kids out of the street. They're mad at you. Because there is no proper society. It's not possible. And so I notice he's got all sort of four-wheelers. And this is part of being in Arkansas. Remember, this is a subdivision with nice brick homes. Now, probably some developer built this thing. And so it's nice brick homes, but because it's West Memphis, Arkansas, and especially before the pandemic and all of this, you know, these are not, you know, $200,000 homes when they were built, probably. But nice brick homes, but a little blighted, right? No HOA. Not everybody necessarily cuts their yard all the time. And if this guy wants to have 3 or 4 four-wheelers and, you know, side-by-sides out in front of his car, out in front of his house, because Arkansas is a little less enslaved than other places, he's free to do so. And so I think to myself, well, you know what? Probably this is the type of fella that I could say, hey, man, I need to park and he even asked me, how long are you in town for? Right? Well, I'm not really in town because, you know, then I just briefly told him the story of what I'm doing. But see, here was the universe or whatever we're calling it. I could have maneuvered a situation and said, hey, man, I need a favor, or I need to leave this car somewhere. Or maybe, hey, man, why don't I sell you this car? And if you still have it, you know, in whatever time period, I'll buy it back from you at a profit. And if you got to do whatever with it in the meantime, hell, it's your car because here's the title. And probably I could sign the title and sign a bill of sale, and then he could decide, what to do with it. And if I want to come buy it back, just give me my title and don't, register it under your name, right? See what I'm saying? And I chose not to do that. See, that's how this works. And see, they actually have bus service from Memphis. I don't know if y'all know this. Arkansas doesn't even have Greyhound bus service. I think Fort Smith still does. Little Rock doesn't even have Greyhound. So it's like, yeah, could I park the fucking car at my grandmother's? Probably. Meanwhile, it's just going to be an eyesore. The mentality of that version of white folks, and my grandmother with dementia, it's going to be too confusing to her to be like, what's this car? What even is this in the backyard or wherever it would end up parked? It's just too much. And then how does Benton physically, now I got to try to fly from fucking Little Rock to Chicago. It's just too much, man. Hypothetically, I could hang out in Memphis long enough to get the drug test results that ended up coming back yesterday. And then fly my happy ass to probably direct flight to Chicago, probably. And then at least be able to drive the big rig back to Memphis to take my things out of the cars. You see what I'm talking about here? Now, he might have been like, yeah, I would be happy to, except my wife's I know she's going to trip out. Okay, that's fine. Or he could be like, yeah, well, not here, but I got a buddy. All right. But then immediately the fear is, well, what if they do this, that, and the third? I don't know. What if they do? I'm probably about to sell this bitch for $250 to the we buy junk cars people. So what's the fucking difference? Do I give a flying fuck about the $250? No. It would help in the short term, but who cares in the long term? I'd rather have my car if possible. Just like I stashed my computer equipment somewhere knowing, well, this may or may not be retrievable in the future, and I may or may not desire to retrieve it. It's an opportunity. Strategizing, see? But that's just how this works. You want to talk about manifesting? This is how this works energetically, right? But back to the fact that it took him a long ass time to come out with the gas, or to put the gas in the gas can. I had a couple of thoughts, and this was improper identification. Like, I had a couple of thoughts of what could happen. Is he trying to set me up? Is he trying to do this? Is he trying to do that? Yeah, I could have driven away, and probably I never would have stopped and picked the guy up in the first place. See, because I knew I picked him up in the spirit of the thing, right? The perfected path that lies within what I am. What was there to worry about? So the few little tiny moments of worry and doubt, that's falling away from the perfected path. So the error correction, or the so-called sin, the only sin is to not be properly identified. Christ didn't die for that. Christ died for the inverse, to show that is error. Identification with this world is error. The only victory is to walk the perfected path within delusion, to lead oneself out of the wilderness. The Christ story is inverted. Of course it is. The inversion gave you the Christ story. How in the world is it not inverted? So if you understand that the world is inverted, invert the inversion, and now we have something that approximates a so-called lesson, or, here's the direction to seek seekers. Seek ye the kingdom. Seek ye first the kingdom. Well, the inverted realm says that has to be outside of you. Invert the idea. It's inside of you, buddy. Now, then again, you have, what do you mean? Christ said the kingdom of God is within you. Well, yeah. And various translations have changed that to, oh, well, no, that was a mistranslation. It means among us. So even that, they're hedging their bets and muddying the waters. And it's not a perfect technology. The inversion's not necessarily a perfect technology at that level. I do now see our fuel mileage is finally falling back to earth. Probably we were at a tailwind, maybe. Or I do probably need to actually pull over and disconnect the battery at some point. Or maybe to operate the vehicle at lower elevations, but the car still uses the high elevation settings. Maybe that temporarily causes insane fuel economy, and then ask yourselves, why is the car not set up for insane fuel economy at the level of its own computer settings? I don't know. It's interesting to think about. Yet another reason your donations might be appreciated, the diminishing returns of fuel economy. But how long have we been on the trip? 1,950 miles, and I've spent less, actually considerably less than, I think I've spent somewhere near $150 on gas. It's just insane to think about that that's even possible. $150 to drive all this way in this little car. People want to know, well, what car is it? Forget about that. What's the driver doing? Who cares which car? You think there's some new, unheard of car that does these things? Nope. Negative. We're going to need more dark chocolate here in a moment. And again, back to the vacuous, delusory realm of business transactions, it can't reward what I'm doing here on this channel. And that's why the donations were way more regular and frequent in the past, when I was way less frequently walking the perfected path that lies within. See? And when I was still preaching a version of Jesus Christ that was a little closer to what the churches teach. See? The closer Benton hammers this stuff home, the less there's going to be donations. And that's fine, because the people who resonate with the message will increasingly be the people who are also persecuted and spiritually attacked, and they're not necessarily going to have the money. See? Which is fine. I'm happy to drive. I like driving a big rig. I'd love to do it for 6 months. I'm not going to make it more than a couple of months, unless the correct proper conditions are there, because there's a crappie. I know a crappie when I see one. I don't know much about fish, but I know a crappie when I see one. Yes, sir. I haven't caught a lot of fish in my life, but almost all of them was crappie. The ones I have caught. Spelled crappie with a I-E. Crappie. Well, actually, the economy is still really good. Is that we're going 60 now instead of 55. That's the difference. Who cares? And I don't know, unless I get back on another roll, the powerful preaching and the spiritual discourse is probably ended. Let me see. Yeah. I'd say right about what? An hour in, probably. So maybe from, just guessing, about 30 minutes in to an hour. And the fact that nobody, and this is not a criticism of the audience, but, people could post in the comments, hey, powerful preaching begins at this time code and ends at this time code. Because a lot of this just gets buried in the, just the sheer amount of streams. And then, it's not, all powerful preaching. What's all powerful, but you know what I mean. See how the language is set up to facilitate mockery And let's go back to in a thought experiment of being spiritually attacked right before unlocking the achievement within the world of death and the game of lies and true knowledge of self. And part of that was to mock and ridicule Benton, who kept going on and on about how intentionally confusing the English language is. Oh, really? By someone who has to understand that that is reality. There's no way that person doesn't understand. Now, they can choose not to accept, right? But they have to understand it intellectually. There's too much evidence. It's the contrary. And I do remember now that I failed to fully flesh out this, the servant is not greater than the master. It's the idea of serving long enough to master whatever needs to be mastered to be able to get out of one's own way enough to actually use the yin form of the yin and the yang, trust, tolerance, acceptance of what? Your own so-called humanity, and to treat yourself properly with love, tenderness, care, compassion inside of yourself, while simultaneously being mocked and ridiculed for even being willing to perform that. See, and God forbid you want to try to tell somebody else about that process. They'll laugh at you. They'll laugh in your face. They'll laugh in your face. And as I grew and changed and evolved along the way, I would occasionally meet a fella who was willing to tell me in my travels, because I don't know them, I don't know their life, I don't know their peer groups. They felt safe, I guess, to share some of what they were going through. And I said, hey man, listen, man to man, I understand that. And again, an actual man, man to man, if you ever need to talk, I'm a good listener. Almost every one of them laughed in my face, cursing their own blessing and affirming that no, they will not do what needs to be done to uncover the perfected path within, even if a being shows up willing to assist. And in fact, the nature of the being only knows how to assist, but not in a controlling way, because the nature of the being knows nothing about control. So when somebody asks me about my own controlling nature, what I am doesn't know anything about a controlling nature. Benton, earlier, less evolved versions of Benton that engaged in romantic relationships through the psychology installed via Moloch's machine. Yes, that psychology has aspects that are controlling. You see what I'm saying? To even identify as controlling is a violation, for what I am knows nothing of condition or control. Nothing whatsoever. Doesn't know what you're talking about. Huh? What? Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. What I am can't create or engage in that dynamic. See? So your narcissist / empath crowd is mobbing around performing the lyrics to a Eurythmics song. And that can't never be love, tolerance, and acceptance. It's the two different energetic forms that are both trying to pass themselves off as love, tolerance, and acceptance. There's your Jack Talcott life coach. If he had any balls, he'd figure out how to be a death coach, but he'd have to coach himself first, buddy. If anybody knows who that is. Jack could grow upset and death coach himself first, and then lead the way to what? Get busy dying. Because the only way out is through. The quickening spirit accelerates the process. Now we're metaphorical and spiritual. The burning away of the dead things of this world as the rocket ship comet of what I am, self-propelled and fueling itself through the metaphorical spiritual skies, cleared for takeoff, get busy dying, as the transhumanists and the so-called elites are trying to get busy living by merging with technology and extending their stay. You are now free to walk about the cabin or the country, right? Or float around the weightlessness of Bezos's fucking phallic rocket, whatever that is. And yeah, I don't need the truthers and conspiracy theorists to tell me that it's that's the lower atmosphere. Yeah, I understand. We're well beyond that, truthers. Are we not? We meaning the truthers, the so-called truth community. We've all been down that rabbit hole. And yeah, do I repeat my own fucking nonsense at a certain point? Yeah, for entertainment purposes, sure. But, the LARP and the loop into trutherism, how has that benefited anybody? Where's the real world effectiveness? Where is the fruit of trutherism? Make the tree good or make the tree rotten. Where is the good fruit of trutherism? Where does that lie? Or lay? DOA, perhaps. Yeah, I see now that I had us. Haiti, Missouri does not have a super center. That's what fucked us all up. I actually gave Google the wrong inputs. Surprise, surprise. That never happened. But at this point, we're probably better off taking the interstate anyway, truthfully. Well, and somehow avoid highways got toggled off, so yeah, we really got fucked up. And so back to the yin form, it's to trust and accept and be secure in the knowledge that everything I'm speaking on here cannot happen tomorrow. So the realm teaches, well, you need to plausibly be able to put on a decent performance of everything Benton is elucidating. Well, why did it take Benton 15 plus years to get to this level of performance? Now, maybe you can do it in 5. You can't do it tomorrow. I know that. But the realm will teach that if you can't, if this is metaphorically learning how to ride a unicycle, if you can't at least ride that unicycle at least a couple of feet by tomorrow, you're a failure. And now it's a performance worthy of mockery and ridicule. Well, here's old Benton. The servant is not greater than the master. Here's Master Benton, at least from the perspective of the person who's just now beginning, perhaps. Right? Saying, well, I'm 15 years in and they're mocking and ridiculing and spiritually attacking and gaslighting the fuck out of me. So what's the relevance of you being mocked and ridiculed and gaslit and spiritually attacked tomorrow? Because, oh my God, I didn't ride the metaphorical unicycle that required 2 feet. Who cares? All that matters is the teeniest, tiniest, most imperceptible amount of progress every single motherfucking day. And some days, the progress is just not to go backwards, because maybe if you hadn't practiced that day, you would have went backwards. So in fact, no progress is still progress if you would have gone backwards without the effort. See how it works? The tiniest little sliver of progress, day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. Pretty soon, a new being stands where one once stood. What's the point of coming here and doing all of this and having all of this struggle, all of this pain, all of this torture, and not do the damn thing? Because one day there's going to be dead flesh, perhaps in a casket, maybe in a piece, maybe buried, probably not, probably ashes to ashes, dust to dust, most likely with old Benton, or what do they call it? A pauper's burial, pauper's grave. Either way, if there's a headstone or a memorial, a remembrance. Funny how that's also a word for death, remembrance. Either way, unless we forget your Christian cross, that's a death symbol. But then I say, what do you mean? Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Well, that doesn't mean that the cross is not it's a death symbol. It's what it is. Say, well, okay. Why are they, if somebody, God forbid, has a tragic accident on the freeway here, there's a decent chance that the loved ones, air quotes, are going to what? Plant a bunch of crosses in the ground at the site. And sometimes you're like, damn, there's 5 crosses. That must have been a bad one. What does that symbolize? The life of the now gone people, or the fact that this is where they died? You tell me. Oh, but it's not a death symbol. Okay, I guess it's not then. What could I know about anything? Because I don't have money. So Benton can't know anything because he's not been christened and absolved and baptized with the death of this world. See, meaning money, property, resources. So if Benton was so intelligent and actually knew a thing or two, why doesn't he have money? I don't know, man. Can I serve 2 masters, perhaps? You tell me. Why are you asking me if I can't possibly know anything based on not having money and accomplishment that this world honors? Why are you asking me? Huh? And I don't mean you, the listener. This is the healing. This is the deliverance. This is the restoration. In the moment, in the flesh. Death warmed over. Animated death. So it's, if the being is willing to acknowledge that when they left their mother's womb into this matrix, another word for womb, out of the frying pan into the fire, and was sacrificed to Moloch, and Moloch's machine ran a train on their bitch ass, and that includes old Benton. Earlier versions of Benton had a train run on his bitch ass. And then it's to understand that this place had turned me out into a version of one of them ghouls and zombies from the Michael Jackson Thriller video. And now can the zombie or the ghoul look through the glass darkly and have brought unto their remembrance that, oh, I used to be Michael Jackson with this best gal in the audience watching all of this. And to remember, now wait a minute, I can go from this performance via dead flesh and return to what I am, which is represented in the music video by the purity of Michael Jackson and his woman. That's how they're visually portrayed, and with their behavior. It's probably why is Michael Jackson the most famous person who will ever, except for Jesus, perhaps. It's Michael Jackson. And why was it Michael Jackson? Because on some level, he would have had the highest capacity to symbolically represent innocence for whatever reason. Innocence and purity. I don't know why. Meanwhile, your broadcaster, your uncoverer of the perfected path that lies within, shares something in common with Michael Jackson. He got raised as a Jehovah's Witness. Yep. I don't believe old Joe Jackson stepping out. I don't believe he stepped out away from Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's see. Because that stepping out song, Joe Jackson, the white boy, the homo white boy, and that song touches something within me. And here I am, and I can choose to listen to that song, and it doesn't do a whole lot to me depending on my emotional state. But here's old Benton that notices every fucking time he goes into the Whole Foods to pick up a package, the Glendale Boulevard location in Silver Lake Whole Foods, if anybody knows LA. Well, I actually see now we just didn't quite make it to a full tank is what happened, because it doesn't even matter. I don't want to get into that right now, but I knew it, so I didn't actually get 46 miles a gallon, because it's probably not even possible in this car. But either way, and I also suspect that the slower you fuel the vehicle, the better, because it's actually by volume, not by weight. If anybody knows that reference. It's not however many gallons in weight, it's by volume. And I think this time I actually probably filled it a little more rapidly than normal. But either way, I went an insane amount of miles even still for $14, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. So, again, talking about this idea of these big corporations and, all of this Nazi experimentation and not whatever grew out of these Nazi science experiments, right? And I've talked about the Walmart Supercenter and the Walmart parking lot, but what about the Amazon, the Whole Foods and the Amazon counter? Because I had established a rapport with the lady who's there the most often, and at a certain point I commented that, and I was joking, but she took me literally, which was her right. I made a joke about, how much do I have to pay to change this music? And she's like, oh, I don't have any control over that. And I'm like, no, because I said something about, every time I come in here, I end up reliving my childhood. So next thing you know, I'm in there, and I'm getting my packages all out. I'm situating everything in my backpack. And here comes Joe Jackson stepping out. Next thing you know, old Benton's teary-eyed and aware in the moment. I'm being fucking attacked. Like something's happening. This is, you think you're a targeted individual? No, I'm saying that what happens that causes people to think they're targeted individuals happens. Now, what was that, folks? That was deliverance. That was healing, and that was restoration. Whether or not those were actual disembodied wicked spirits with personalities, or if that was just some deep, low-level, stagnated energies ascending, getting pulled a little too close to the spinal column, and then shooting up the spine and leaving the energy sphere via the throat chakra or not. That's at least the third time that's happened on stream, and if I could have gotten to the mute button, I would have. Meanwhile, I've had these experiences, and I talk to my mom on the phone, and when I get a little too close to the heart of some of these matters, she starts coughing, and I say, hey, that's them demons panicking, because you're on the verge of evicting some of them. And of course, that's not possible in her world. She can't possibly be infested with demons. Right? Well, how you going to receive this healing, lady? How you going to receive deliverance, restoration, healing? How you going to receive deliverance, healing, and restoration if it ain't possible that you need any of that? See? And I could feel in my tissues that was some healing. Now, surprise, surprise, it happens when I'm relating these concepts. Shocking, I know. But yeah, Benton entering into some sort of emotional state and understanding in the moment what's going on with the TI stuff and knowing not to identify with that, right? Oh, now he thinks he's a targeted individual. That's what you say. I never said any such thing. In fact, I always make sure to make it known that I understand what that is, and that ain't got anything to do with old Benton. Meanwhile, this world teaches you better not cough around us. There was a pandemic, and if you cough in public, you might kill our kin. Meanwhile, how does the motherfucking demonic entities leave your energy sphere? They're expelled through the throat chakra, meaning you cough them out. Hey, let's indoctrinate the populace to never forcefully cough, because I went with the thing. I felt it coming, and I moved the microphone away to hopefully not blow anybody's eardrums out. And I leaned into the cough. Now they've brainwashed everybody into stifling the cough, meaning even if the demonic entity is on the verge of escaping, now the being's own behavior physically will perhaps, or at least keep some of the healing from happening, right? Oh, well, maybe some healing's going to happen, but let's limit it, see? Now, I'm not saying that was the entirety of the pandemic. It's obviously a part of it. Obviously. See how it works? What's funny is that most of my experience of this deeply buried pain and trauma energetically has been my right shoulder, right upper back, scapular area, and then below the shoulder blade. But now enough healing has happened that it's actually the deepest part is right underneath, just underneath my right titty, kind of the side of my rib cage. And it's so buried so deep, I wasn't even aware of it until very recently when I happened to reach down to try to retrieve something from the back seat of my car, and it drove the corner of my seat directly into that area. And and it's hurt so bad that I had to, even though I'm physically capable and certainly would have been able to do the same thing on the left side of my body if that was the proper side. See, and now it's been tender for a few days, and surprise, surprise, that's part of the healing also, right? And so probably if there's stuff buried that deep in me, and I've been engaged in spiritual practice every single day for 15 years, even if some of those days I only treaded water, but I didn't go backwards, and I'm still uncovering it. What is buried within you in a world of trauma, world of death, games of lies? And just to get through the experience, you've had to perform that way in some ways to meet expectations. Just to meet expectations. See? Just to meet expectations. Because the being falsely identifies themselves in relation to this world, and that's never not a violation. So, hey, Benton, what do you do? Oh, you mean for money? Because I do a lot of things, right? Refusing to identify oneself in relation to this world. I had a guy one time that I knew, because the one thing about having an attractive woman and traveling around the country and meeting new people, there's a lot of guys start to covet and think, well, look at this bozo. If he can get her, I can get her. It's like, yeah, but I got her and when I didn't have a woman. And hey, bozo, not you, the listener, but bozo can't get a woman without a woman. Or he can't get a woman without taking another fella's woman because he needs somebody to run a 4-minute mile. He needs somebody that he views as, he thinks he's superior to me in a certain way, and he's probably right. See? But only in that specific way. So he asked me one day, oh, well, what do you do? I said, about what? And then our mutual buddy just burst into laughter and said, man, I love you, man. Because he knew that guy had designs on my woman because my woman was observing all this. And he was seeking to have me undermine myself by loving death and falsely identifying with this world. And I didn't even understand that intellectually at the time. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, about what? Meanwhile, he didn't have no job. See? And if I'm dumb enough to go into a fear space and could you be more specific? And see, this guy definitely was more intelligent than me in a way, and then also was condescendingly treating me like I was so dumb that I wouldn't understand the dynamics. Part of the reason I was able to woo that lady and keep her for damn near 10 years, but meanwhile, what I am knows nothing of possession. And at a certain point, old Benton figured it out, the folly of attempting to possess such a lovely creature, even if that lovely creature, for whatever reason, seemingly desired to be possessed. Interesting. And what did that guy want to possess her for to do? What evil was he going to do with her? I don't know. Weren't going to be nothing good. Weren't going to be nothing good. And see, men can talk to each other in some type of way, which is like, hey, buddy. Also, you know, if you keep pushing this, I'm not a fighter, but pretty sure I could take your bitch ass, you know, and that's also in there. Pretty sure I could handle your bitch ass, even though we're here in the hippy dippy fucking hangout. And it's not really appropriate for me to behave overtly aggressively. So yeah, I'll go ahead and let you know what I think of you without just beating my chest and, you know, acting like there's going to be a fight. Meanwhile, I don't fight in the first place. What's in it for me to smash my fucking fists into somebody's face? What do I win? Smashed fucking broken hands? What's the point of that? Blood all over me? That's if I win, air quotes win. Is you crazy? Pretty sure I could have reached out and wrapped one hand around his collar and pulled him in and headbutted him, and that'd been the end of it. But see, old Benton, there's something inside of him at the level of being a Benton. See, that's the dead flesh. That's the dead flesh, right? The dead flesh bloodline will know what to do. See, it knows what to do because it is of this world. Violence is of this world. Aggression is of this world. So the bloodline of Benton that had my grandfather famous for football, that's in the bloodline somewhere because nobody gets that famous. Now, yeah, you don't know who he is now because fame doesn't necessarily last forever, right? But back then he was quite famous, back in the day. Well, that's probably part of it, right? Why is Benton out here looking like Edward Scissorhands? Fucking ridiculously, comically large hands compared to the rest of me. I don't fucking know. Probably something to do with the bloodline. Do I need to be 6'5" like some of my uncles to have these sizes? Have the hands the size of my 6'5" uncles or my 6'3" grandfather? They're not quite as big as my dad's, but his seem to be on the larger end of the spectrum, even within the family. And I can look at a picture of my famous grandfather, and from the side, from certain angles, it's like, well, it looks a lot like me. It looks like a lot like my dad, and that it looks exactly like my wrist and my hands, my comically scrawny, tiny wrists. This gigantic fucking baseball mitt of a hand, as big as my whole face. bigger, really. I had some gal one time thought she was a badass because she was infested with demons. This was out in Slab City. She thought she could beat up men and all this crap. And so one time, and there was a mutual attraction, sure, whatever. But one time, me and her were alone, which we really shouldn't have been in retrospect, but we were, because I was still with ex-wife number 2. And in fact, that was the second time I was on the verge of having 2 girlfriends. Except it was like, yeah, I'm not really trying to actively, Patrice O'Neal active bitch management and to deal with how jealous ex-wife number 2 was. Yeah. I'm really not into all of that. It's just too much work. No thanks. Actively managing my main bitch in that context was already getting to be too much. I was already in the process of letting her go. Meanwhile, what I am doesn't know anything about possession. So that was probably part of my own trip as well. But she thought she was going to show me that she could do some shit, and she mimed throwing a rock at my head. And she thought she won because people think they got you to flinch. I said, oh no, do you not see where my hand went to? Because she was trying to say I would have just hit you in the head with a rock. And I said, no, I would have blocked it. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, don't you see how big my hand is? My gigantic hand was in place in time to deflect your rock, bitch. And yet, the other one, did I turn to the side slightly and cover my crotch? Sure, because I don't know where the motherfucking rock's going. Or cover my midsection in a way. That's built into me. And if people think they've made me flinch, I had another time somebody thought, oh, I'm going to show him because I was standing up. I still thought it was appropriate for me to enforce no line cutting at the fucking homeless feed or whatever. Or, oh, we're all about to go in for homeless services in Portland. And these certain people who think they're bullies are going to bully their way to the front of the line. And I still thought it was my job to stop them. And really, it's everybody's job. But I had one of them act like they were going to swing on me and then tried to say, oh, look, you flinched. I said, no, I didn't. Look at where my arm is. I just blocked your punch, partner. Because I'm left-handed. And my arm effortlessly goes up. My whole fucking forearm went up to where it would have intercepted his fucking punch. Now what, bitch? Now headbutt, motherfucker. And that's just built into me. And I wouldn't have had to think about it. Or probably I'm just going to look at him like, now we both know what my next move would have been, man to man, so can we just knock it the fuck off? Or do I actually have to headbutt you? But I've never identified with any of that. It's just there when I need it. I've never identified with any of that ever. It's not me. That's this dead world. That's not me. See? And Benton ain't no badass at that level. Exactly. Benton's a pacifist. I can't be physically violent and be what I am simultaneously. It's one or the other. So I had a now dead uncle, if you're listening, Pops. One of my now dead uncles used to like to preach on Jesus. And I couldn't, they were twins. It's hard for me to remember which one was which. But it really don't do any good for him to preach on Jesus if he's out there beating people up and throwing his motherfucking considerable weight around. I don't remember any accounts of Jesus in the Bible doing that. Maybe whatever, running out the money changers is a little bit different thing. Driving them out of the temple. That's got to be metaphorical on some level. Right? Wise as serpents, harmless as doves, so they say. I don't know who wrote that. Did Christ say that? I don't know. I'll have to go back and look, I guess. Can't call it. You tell me. There's a story in there I never finished. Let me see if I can go back about three or four stories and find it. I don't know. Maybe it'll come back. Maybe not. One thing leads to another. Oh, the Joe Jackson. So yeah, surprise, surprise. Me and Michael Jackson raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. Next thing you know, here I am. Because I know not to. I'm not gonna blubber and sob in the fucking Whole Foods, but if a fucking couple of tears, water comes out of my eyes, who cares? I don't give a fuck. And that can't ever be a coincidence. Meanwhile, Michael Jackson's father, Joe Jackson, the guy that sang the song, Joe Jackson, what is this? Again, mockery and ridicule of what I am. It's like, oh, we'll remind you what you are in the context of this place, Benton. The vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. Yeah, let us help you bring unto your remembrance. See? Help us help you, sir. And what did the DMT elves, so-called, say when, because Benton researches chemicals and psychedelics extensively before he takes them, and Benton knew that supposedly based on people's trip reports, and some of this is Terrence McKenna, and whether or not this is real or not, who cares, but it's all hallucination on some level. Waking dreams, surrealistic, unreality, but my one and only DMT experience, other than just whatever DMT my body experiences. Certainly that was DMT when I had the very vivid lucid dreams a few weeks back. That's DMT in the bloodstream, almost certainly. So if you've ever had a very vivid dream, guess what? You've probably also, air quotes, done DMT, but your body produced it just in lower levels than, in higher levels than normal probably for you, but then in higher levels than, the so-called blast off, but lower levels than the blast off, I should say. And I knew that, part of the elves thing is, maybe they want to be helpful, or that's their legally, maybe they have to be, right? But that a lot of the people that show up in that realm are there just to get their kicks on Route 66. And Benton takes it seriously, so here's Benton shows up. And so my question for the DMT elves was more or less like, just, and of course Benton making it about himself, like what, and I don't remember the specific question, but some version of like advice or what to do. And I was told, treat the children well, and then they mocked and ridiculed and laughed themselves silly, which is some acknowledgement of, hey, what you bozos are energetically down in that place is sacrificing all these children to Moloch. So how about figure out how to knock that the fuck off, bozo? And in fact, through the hallucination, the auditory hallucination, I was simultaneously hearing hallucinatory versions of nearby children at play at the internet cafe years ago at Slab City, my one and only blast off on DMT. Because Benton's cooler than any of you ever will be, and that's just what it is. Hate to break it to you. And even that's douchebaggery to even think that way. But I am. Or Benton is. What I am would never worry about or concern itself with being cool. But yeah, when I've never had a mushroom trip, my first mushroom trip is in People's Park in Berkeley. And my one and only DMT blast off is in Slab City at the internet cafe. Because I got it like that. If y'all don't, so what? I earned it anyway. Who cares? Who cares? That's all dead. That belongs to this place. That belongs to a world of death. Games of lies. And I started talking about psychedelics, and predictably some of the audience left. But that's I've known that for a long time, that no matter who's listening, there are people who will immediately leave if I start talking about psychedelics and anything that's bizarro. And that's a lack of trust, which is okay. It's not even necessarily that they don't want to hear about psychedelics. It's that they don't trust where I might be taking on. Oh, and I now remember I was supposed to plug my power bank into charge, and I failed to do so. My apologies to myself. How silly, bozo. Whoa, Nelly bozo, one moment. What are you doing, sir? Where is the power bank? I don't know. Well, there it is. Aha! Now we're charging at, let's see, 15.8 watts. Is that all I'm going to get? It'll go up to like 18. There we go, 16. It'll charge it up to 140, but I only have a 100-watt charger. But my my inverter's is on the fritz. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it don't. Hey, we got a Venmo. Thanks, Carrie. Woohoo! Now I've got enough to get my subscription to Smart Truck Route for my truck driving job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Much appreciated. Awesome. Love that. I heard the phone ding earlier. This is my first chance to check it. So if you're still listening, thank you. Oh my goodness. The spot right underneath my right titty is very, very, very tender. Oh yeah, that's that good pain. It hurts so good. Sometimes love don't feel like it should, because it ain't even love. That's why. Or the being doesn't know what love is. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. I want to feel what love is. More mockery, more ridicule. Anyway, I guess I'm out of here. Appreciate y'all listening. Bye.